Teen to face high court trial over Mahdia school dorm deaths. News source Guyana. A teenage girl, facing 20 murder charges related to the tragic Mahdia school dorm fire, is set to stand trial in the High Court. Senior Magistrate Sunil Scare determined that there was sufficient evidence against her to warrant a jury trial. The teen, who was 15 years old at the time of the incident in 2023, is accused of setting the fire that resulted in the deaths of 20 children. The ruling was made during a session at the Mahdia Magistrates Court on Friday. She is represented by attorney Dexter Todd and his legal team, while the state has appointed attorney Lachmi Rahamath as the special prosecutor for the case. Currently, the accused remains at a juvenile detention center. The fire, which occurred on May 21, 2023, was determined by both the Guyana Police Force and the Guyana Fire Service to have been set maliciously while many students were asleep. The blaze quickly engulfed the heavily grilled dormitory, trapping numerous students inside and complicating rescue efforts. Despite the rescue of over 25 students, 19 tragically lost their lives in the fire, with a 20th child dying later in the hospital. The incident prompted a national mourning period and sparked widespread discussions on the security of school dormitories and related safety issues. Following the tragedy, a commission of inquiry was conducted, and the government has reached settlements with some parents of the deceased children. However, other parents have sought compensation through the High Court for the loss of their children. Potentia man charged after beating wife and mother-in-law, remanded. A man from Potentia, West Bank Demerara, has been charged and remanded following accusations of brutally beating his 26-year-old wife and her mother, Shamiza Mohammed, who has since succumbed to her injuries. The accused, Parsuram Arjun, was initially charged with unlawful wounding and abusive language directed at his wife, Selina Samaru. He appeared in the Wales Magistrates Court before Magistrate Rondell Weaver, where he denied the charges and was remanded to prison until February 26. The incident occurred on February 12, 2025. At that time, due to the unavailability of a medical report for Mohammed, Arjun was only charged for the injuries inflicted on Samaru. However, following the tragic death of Mohammed at the West Demerara Regional Hospital, police have indicated that they will seek legal advice on pursuing more serious charges against Arjun. An autopsy is scheduled for Wednesday, and the outcome will inform the next steps in the investigation. Arjun remains in custody as authorities continue to gather evidence and await the autopsy report. (2020) election fraud case adjourned to March 17. NCN Guyana. The ongoing 2020 election fraud case continued today in the Magistrate Court, with prosecution witness Rosalinda Rasool completing her testimony. Following her statements, she was cross-examined by the defense. The case has been adjourned to March 17, when Minister of Local Government and Regional Development Sonia Parag is expected to testify. During her initial appearance yesterday, Rasool detailed how former returning officer Claremont Mingo utilized spreadsheets for vote tabulation, despite a court order mandating the use of only the statements of poll, SOPs. She described the chaos at the GCOM Command Center on March 4, 2020, located at the Ashmans Building on High and Hadfield Streets. Rasool recounted significant delays, inconsistencies regarding the number of uncounted ballot boxes, and objections raised by political party representatives as results were announced from a spreadsheet rather than from the SOPs. Despite these concerns, former Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield dismissed the objections, asserting that the use of the spreadsheet was intended to expedite the process. The case is being presided over by Acting Chief Magistrate Faith McGusty and involves 9 defendants, including PNC/our scrutineer Carol Smith-Joseph, former APNU plus AFC Minister Volda Lawrence, former Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield, and his then Deputy Roxanne Myers, among others. They are facing 19 conspiracy charges related to the declaration of fraudulent election results. Alliance for Change calls for urgent measures to protect Guyana's territorial integrity and armed forces. The Alliance for Change, AFC, has issued a call for immediate action to safeguard the territorial integrity of Guyana and the safety of its armed forces. This plea follows recent attacks on military personnel at the border with Venezuela by armed gang members. The AFC expresses strong support for the state's efforts and the actions of the Guyana Defense Force, GDF, in protecting the nation's borders. The recent assault on GDF members underscores the significant challenges faced by the armed forces while fulfilling their national duties. To prevent future incidents and potential escalations, the AFC emphasizes the need for enhanced defensive and protective measures. They advocate for the urgent deployment of the recently approved budgetary allocation of $50.4 billion to bolster the deterrent capacity of the armed forces. On the diplomatic front, the AFC urges the government to engage with international and regional allies, informing them of the incident and its implications for Guyana's sovereignty. The party reaffirms its commitment to protecting Guyana's integrity and will support any necessary steps to deter threats to the nation. The AFC also calls on the government to provide comprehensive support to the armed forces, ensuring they have the resources needed to defend the country effectively. In closing, the Alliance for Change salutes the bravery of the soldiers and wishes a speedy recovery to the wounded. Lance Corporal feared drowned in Puruni River incident. Authorities are currently investigating the suspected drowning of Lance Corporal Jermaine Batson following a boating mishap on the Puruni River, a tributary of the Mazaruni River, on Sunday, February 18, 2025. The incident also involved Constable Quincy Marks and Ransdale Melville, a 30-year-old boat captain from 3rd Avenue, Bartica. Preliminary reports indicate that the three individuals departed Puruni landing around 9 o'clock HRS on a routine patrol, aboard a 12-foot wooden boat powered by a 40-horsepower Yamaha engine. Constable Marks was seated in the middle of the boat, unarmed but in full uniform, while Batson, also in the middle, was armed with a Taurus pistol containing 15 rounds. Melville operated the vessel from the rear. At approximately 11:45 HRS, while navigating upstream, the boat's engine failed, causing water to enter the vessel and leading to partial submersion. In a bid to escape the flooding boat, Batson jumped into the river. As the vessel drifted downstream, Constable Marks and Melville managed to leap onto a nearby rock to secure it from being carried away by the current. They tied the boat to a branch to stabilize it. Constable Marks reported that Batson was initially seen holding onto a branch on the opposite side of the river. During a brief conversation, Batson confirmed he was unharmed and inquired about his colleague's safety. Marks assured him they were fine. However, while they were busy bailing out water and attempting to restart the engine, Batson suddenly disappeared from view. After a short search yielded no results, Marks and Melville restarted the boat and continued their search for Batson from the water. When those efforts proved unsuccessful, they proceeded on foot to a nearby camp to access Wi-Fi and report the incident. Upon receiving the distress call, Assistant Superintendent of Police, ASP, Chaitram, Detective Sergeant Jonas, and Constable Watts were dispatched to the scene to investigate. The search for Lance Corporal Batson is ongoing, and authorities will provide further updates as the investigation progresses. GDF adjusts posture at border following attack on soldiers, Brig Khan. News source Guyana. The Guyana Defense Force, GDF, has made significant adjustments to its posture along the western border and in surrounding communities after an attack on a GDF patrol in the Cuyuni River, which left 6 servicemen with gunshot wounds. In a telephone interview, Chief of Defense Staff Brigadier Omar Khan emphasized the necessity for a new defense strategy in response to the incident. The incident demands us to transition into a new defense posturing, which will entail a number of things. I want to assure you that it is being addressed, he stated, noting that while specifics cannot be disclosed, the security posture at the border will be enhanced. Following the extraction of the injured soldiers, the GDF has reinforced its presence along the Cuyuni River and other sections of the border with Venezuela. The gunmen involved in the attack are suspected members of a criminal gang, with reports indicating that at least 3 Venezuelan suspects were arrested in Venezuela after seeking medical help for injuries sustained during the assault. The government of Guyana has expressed outrage over the attack and has communicated with international partners regarding the incident. In contrast, the Venezuelan government has accused Guyana of spreading disinformation and propaganda in an official statement. On Tuesday, Guyana's Minister of Foreign Affairs summoned the Venezuelan ambassador to convey the government's concerns and outrage. President Irfan Ali is expected to address the matter during the CARICOM summit in Barbados, which begins this evening. Before departing for the summit, the president visited the injured soldiers to offer support. The GDF reported that the injured servicemen suffered penetrating trauma from gunshot wounds, with 3 requiring surgical intervention. The GDF remains committed to safeguarding Guyana's territorial integrity amidst these developments. Plea Bargaining Act now in force in Guyana, says A.G. Nandlall. News source Guyana. The Criminal Procedure, Plea Discussion and Plea Agreement Act is now officially in force in Guyana, as announced by Attorney General Anil Nandlall. He expressed hope that the public will support this significant legislation aimed at enhancing judicial efficiency and conserving judicial resources. During his weekly television program, Issues in the News, A.G. Nandlall emphasized that the Caribbean Court of Justice has urged all regional countries to implement plea bargaining legislation, and Guyana has taken the necessary steps to comply. The act was signed into law last month. It is important that we get the public buy-in, Nandlall remarked, noting that the legislation includes a provision requiring judges or magistrates to inform defendants of their right to enter into plea discussions with prosecutors during their initial court appearance. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions has already begun to utilize the new process. Key features of the legislation include right to legal representation. Accused persons are entitled to legal representation during plea discussions. Victim rights. Prosecutors are obligated to inform victims about their right to provide impact statements, with limitations on what can be included. Prohibition on certain plea discussions. Prosecutors cannot engage in plea discussions or agreements if the accused or any related parties could face a pecuniary penalty or forfeiture. A.G. Nandlall highlighted the success of plea bargaining in the United States, where approximately 95% of criminal cases are resolved through this process. He also noted that it is now mandatory for courts to inform the accused about the plea bargaining procedure in the preliminary stages of proceedings. This is a very important legislative intervention, he stated, encouraging the public to take advantage of the provisions established by the Act. Vice President expresses dissatisfaction with management of government projects by Public Works Ministry. News source Guyana. Vice President Barrett Jagdeo has voiced his dissatisfaction with the management of government projects by the Ministry of Public Works, highlighting that poor planning continues to discomfort thousands of citizens daily. During a panel discussion at the Guyana Energy Conference and Supply Chain Expo, Jagdeo emphasized his frustration with the ministry, led by Minister Bishop Juan Edgehill and Minister Deodat Indar, who assists in the ministry's operations. He stated that the lack of effective management at project sites is unacceptable, saying, "They don't think about the 100,000 people who are discomfort every day. They just go and dig things up everywhere." Jagdeo urged for regulations that could provide order and structure in the execution of public projects, indicating his willingness to champion such legislation. He expressed his anger at the ongoing disruptions caused by poorly managed projects, noting that the president has also addressed these issues directly with the ministry. While acknowledging the necessity of infrastructural development to keep pace with Guyana's growth, Jagdeo stressed the importance of considering the impact on citizens. "I know we are building lots of things at the same time, and we have to do it, but for Christ's sake, let's do it with some order," he remarked. The vice president also raised concerns about the quality of work and allegations of corruption within the construction sector. He acknowledged that while the government has implemented safeguards, issues persist. "We have seen one family would have 4 or 5 companies established in different names, and when they bid, they breach the tender process," he noted, highlighting challenges with shoddy work and potential bribery among engineers. Jagdeo assured that the government is attentive to complaints regarding the construction sector and has no intention of ignoring these issues. This year, the government has allocated over $400 billion for various infrastructural projects across different ministries as part of its significant infrastructural push. Guyana, Dominican Republic ready to collaborate on joint tourism product. Guyana and the Dominican Republic are set to collaborate on promoting a premium tourism destination, alongside their existing partnerships in agriculture and oil and gas. This commitment was reaffirmed during an engagement between President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali and DR President Luis Abinader. President Ali highlighted the importance of strategic partnerships and private sector ventures in driving the evolution of Guyana's tourism and hospitality sector. He expressed enthusiasm about the discussions with President Abinader, noting their readiness to jointly market both nations as a common tourism destination, just 2.5 hours apart. Such initiatives will set Guyana apart from the competition, providing greater leverage to enhance the sector, he stated. The launch of direct flights by Sky High Aviation Services Dominicana last year has already opened new business and tourism opportunities between the two countries. Speaking at the sod turning event for a new branded hotel at the Pegasus Hotel and Corporate Center in Kingston, President Ali emphasized the government's focus on capitalizing on Guyana's rich biodiversity and serene landscapes as prime tourism products. He remarked, "We need to leverage the diaspora to bring back their capital and encourage them to make Guyana their destination. We are collaborating with top global brands in eco and nature-based tourism to attract the best investors." The government aims to attract 3 million visitors to Guyana by 2030, enhancing the tourism experience through a calendar of events designed to appeal to a diverse range of tourists. Discussions are underway with sports and entertainment leaders to support these investments. The new independent branded hotel is envisioned as a bridge between the old and the new, with plans to demolish part of the existing Pegasus Poolside and Grand Savannah Suite to make way for this project. The facility will feature 170 executive rooms, a third-floor gym, and a 13th-floor executive lounge, along with a penthouse offering panoramic views of the city skyline. President Ali praised CEO Robert Badel and his family for their significant investment in this venture, emphasizing that the long-term success of the tourism sector relies on collective effort and resilience. CEO Robert Badel noted that Guyana's rapid development, particularly in the oil and gas sector, has transformed the country into a vibrant hub for investment. Despite challenges such as skilled labor shortages and financing issues, the private sector remains committed to significant projects that will contribute to the economy. There are no attempts to sweep corruption under the carpet, VP Jagdeo. Vice President Dr. Barrett Jagdeo has affirmed the government's commitment to accountability and transparent governance, stating that there is no deliberate attempt to conceal corruption within his administration. He emphasized that the government has put in place robust safeguards to prevent corrupt practices. Jagdeo made these comments during the Guyana Energy Conference and Supply Chain Expo, responding to a participant's concerns about corruption. "There is no attempt to sweep it under the carpet because this is an ugly phenomenon that happens everywhere in the world and would happen if you're spending more," he remarked. The vice president highlighted the government's compliance with the Procurement Act, reiterating the administration's dedication to addressing public sector corruption. He pointed out that the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board, NPTAB, regularly publishes awarded contracts on its website, contrasting this with the previous administration, which he claimed failed to comply with legal requirements. "The last government did not publish a single award in clear violation of the law," Jagdeo noted. Jagdeo has consistently promoted a zero-tolerance policy for corruption among public office holders. During a high-level meeting at the Arthur Chung Conference Center, he stressed the need for strict adherence to procurement rules and urged public officials to familiarize themselves with the Procurement Act and standard bidding documents to avoid deviations from legal frameworks. He also discussed issues of shoddy work and bribery in public projects, reiterating that these matters are being addressed publicly. International recognition of Guyana's anti-corruption efforts includes the prestigious Best Regional AML/CFT Case Award, BREMLT, awarded by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, CFTAF, acknowledging the nation's commitment to tackling corruption and financial impropriety. Additionally, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, commended Guyana for its progress in managing oil wealth and enhancing fiscal transparency in its 2023 Article 4 consultation report. These accolades reflect the government's ongoing strategy to combat corruption effectively. Government ramps up efforts to boost HPV vaccination coverage to 90%. The government is intensifying its efforts to increase human papillomavirus, HPV, vaccination coverage to 90% as part of a comprehensive strategy to reduce the risks of cervical cancer. During a recent commissioning ceremony in Region 10, Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony emphasized the importance of the HPV vaccine and the progress made in expanding vaccination coverage. Dr. Anthony reported that, just 2 years ago, vaccination coverage was only about 14 to 15%. By the end of last year, this figure had risen to approximately 58 to 60%. He stated, "We are making progress. But we want to get to 90% because that is the coverage that the World Health Organization is recommending." Cervical cancer, the second most prevalent cancer among women, is largely preventable as it is caused by the HPV virus. The minister urged eligible individuals, particularly females aged 9 to 45, to get vaccinated to lower their risk of infection. "We are trying to make sure that the vaccines are available and that we get people to take it," he noted. In 2024, the government conducted 12,000 HPV tests for the first time, with approximately 2,000 individuals testing positive, which increases their risk of developing cervical cancer. Dr. Anthony assured that all those who tested positive have been placed on a treatment pathway to prevent the onset of the disease. He also encouraged individuals to take advantage of the cervical cancer voucher valued at $8,000, which can be used at several health institutions. In June 2024, the government launched a $2.8 billion cervical screening program to help offset screening costs for women aged 21 to 65. Additionally, a new national action plan for 2024 to 2030 was introduced last year, aimed at eradicating cervical cancer in the country. More charging stations for electric vehicles as UN launches JET initiative in Guyana. On February 19, 2025, the United Nations in Guyana, supported by the Joint Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) Fund, launched the Just Energy Transition JET seed funding initiative at the UN House in Georgetown. This initiative represents a crucial step in Guyana's shift towards clean energy, aligning with the nation's Low-Carbon Development Strategy (LCDS) 2030. The JET initiative aims to enhance Guyana's renewable energy capacity and promote sustainable mobility. It will offer both technical and policy support through collaboration with the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, the International Organization for Migration, IOM, the Guyana Energy Agency, GEA, and the Board of Industrial Training, BIT. As part of this initiative, 3 solar-powered electric vehicle, EV, charging stations will be established in key locations across regions 5, 6, and 10. Additionally, a technical training program will be introduced to develop the local workforce, equipping professionals with the necessary skills to maintain and expand Guyana's renewable energy infrastructure. The program will prioritize equitable access to opportunities, focusing on empowering youth, women, and marginalized groups. Nadira Bolram, UNDP's officer in charge, emphasized the long-term benefits, stating, "This initiative will create jobs and new economic opportunities. By equipping a new generation of technicians with specialized skills, we are fostering a workforce prepared for the transition to a green economy." Eraina Yaw, head of IOM Guyana, highlighted the broader impacts on capacity building, noting the increasing need for training in migration, environment, and climate change. Jean Kamau, UN Resident Coordinator, pointed out the initiative's alignment with Guyana's climate goals, stating, "This program directly supports Guyana's nationally determined contributions under the UN Climate Promise, accelerating progress on SDG 7, Affordable and Clean Energy, SDG 13, Climate Action, and SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities." The JET initiative is designed to integrate clean energy solutions into Guyana's national economy, contributing to the goal of achieving 80% renewable energy in its electricity grid by 2040. As Guyana experiences rapid economic growth, the JET seed funding program will be vital in ensuring that this development is sustainable, inclusive, and resilient to climate change. Man to spend life in prison for brutal 2020 murder. Guyana Times, Shaquille Fawkes, known as Max, was sentenced to life in prison on February 19, 2025, for the 2020 murder of Hanuman Jadunath from Puturoyan, West Coast, Demerara. Justice Simone Morris Ramlal delivered the ruling at the Demerara High Court, stipulating that Fawkes would not be eligible for parole until he has served 33 years. The sentencing follows nearly 5 years after Jadunath's brutal death, during which he suffered multiple stab wounds to the chest and neck. Fawkes, who had a prior conviction for armed robbery, demonstrated no remorse throughout the trial. His conviction was supported by damning surveillance footage, witness testimony, and forensic evidence that clearly established his involvement in the crime. In determining the sentence, Justice Maurice Ramlaw set a baseline of 30 years. After considering various factors, she adjusted the term. 5 years were deducted based on social inquiry reports, but an additional 5 years were added due to the cruelty of the offense. Moreover, an extra 3 years were imposed due to Fawkes' previous armed robbery conviction in 2018, for which he had served 28 months. During the sentencing hearing, a family member of the victim delivered an emotional impact statement, describing the profound loss and pain caused by Jadunatha's murder. The relative spoke of the emotional and financial toll on the family, emphasizing that his death left an irreplaceable void. The murder occurred between March 30th and 31st, 2020. Jadunath was last seen alive with Fawkes and another individual on the night of March 30th. Surveillance footage later presented in court showed Fawkes attacking Jadunath, who was carrying a water bottle, reportedly forced to fetch it. Another video captured Fawkes walking alone with a knife shortly after the incident. At approximately 4:45 a.m. the following morning, police found Jadunath unconscious in the roadway, covered in blood. He was rushed to the hospital but succumbed to his injuries. A post-mortem confirmed that he died from stab wounds that punctured vital organs, along with additional injuries indicating he had been beaten. 2 days post-murder, police arrested Fawkes, who acknowledged being the individual in the surveillance footage but denied stabbing Jadunath. He claimed another person had dropped the knife, which he later disposed of, but the weapon was never recovered. Throughout the trial, prosecutors dismantled Fawkes' claims, providing multiple witnesses who corroborated his presence at the scene. His contradictory statements further weakened his defense, leading the jury to a unanimous guilty verdict. The prosecution, led by Christopher Belfield, argued for a severe sentence, stating that the crime was premeditated and involved extreme violence. Defense attorney Lawrence Harris sought leniency, but the court found that the heinous nature of the crime and Fawkes' criminal history justified the life sentence. With the sentencing concluded, Fawkes will begin his term at Mazaruni Prison, where he will serve a minimum of 30 years before being eligible for parole.